Oh, there it is. All right, pretty sure it's working. All right, cool. So let's go into it. What's your, just give your name, position, business you own.
Sure. I'm Mike Mahony, and my main business right now is top tier coaching services. I coach technology executives on living a better life and being better leaders.
Awesome. And then how do you describe what you do?
I tell people that I'm a therapist for tech people because there's, hustle culture unfortunately has invaded the tech industry big time
Mm-hmm.
to the point where they're so indoctrinated that they'll tell you they can't work less hours. That's impossible. And I lived it, so I know they're wrong. So I kind of act as their therapist and kind of guide them in the right direction.
To help with the work-life balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I interviewed at years ago. I was working at Disney. I was in gaming and I went and I interviewed at Activision. They do like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
I said, all right, guys, sounds cool, but like, what's work-life balance? All of them face drop. Oh, we don't really have any. I'm like, oh, okay. I was like, I'm not coming here. I need some balance. I don't want to grind all day just so you guys get a low end position necessarily to do something I could do somewhere else and get just as far at the time within my career. And then I ended up at MySpace where it was just a lot of fun. So it
Yeah.
was a good
Yeah. No.
decision. But
It
I
also
love
always works out. It always works out the way you want to if you follow your gut and stuff like that.
follow you and you keep moving forward. You never stop. You never get complacent. You just keep
Yeah.
going forward. And I find people who get complacent, the next thing you know, down the road, they're like, all right, things aren't working out. And then they complain about it for years. And you're like, well, why didn't you make a change back then? Like you'd be in a better place.
Yeah. And then you get the people who I used to struggle with my wife's stepdad. He would
Mm.
say, as a tech consultant, you jump from place to place, and he'd say, in my day, we stayed at a job for 30, 40 years. Well, I actually am. I run my own company, and I'm work. I've been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Just because you hear me working at 50 different clients doesn't mean I'm working a
You're
different
jumping
job.
around. Yeah.
But they just don't understand it. It's a different world today,
Yeah.
when it comes to that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. I was doing, my parents were like, why are you jumping around so much? I'm like, I'm moving up. I'm moving up. I'm like knocking down things and moving up. And I remember one time I was negotiating and my mom, she was like, and I was like, there's a strategy. It says start with no. And like they make an offer. And I was like, let me see if I can get more out of them. And they go, okay. It was like the second offer that they came back with. I was like, no, let's see if we can get this because it wasn't a no. It was just like, well, what about this? And I was like, no, what about that? And she's like, you got to get it. You're going to lose the opportunity. I'm like, no, they're just going to tell me no. And then I go back to what they last did. They're not going to be mad. I'm asking, right? Like I'm the
Yeah.
one in control here. So I ended up getting what I wanted. And I'm like, you see? And then starting the business, she's like, oh, that's not safe. I'm like, it's more safe to lose one client that I can replace than to lose my job and everything.
Yeah, no, that's actually a good attitude. I mean, it's a mindset shift that people need to make,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, pretty much running a business is a mindset shift. You have to go from being the employee who takes direction from somebody else to being the one who gives the direction, and you have to have the confidence that you can do that, that
Yeah.
you're that person. And I always say, like, I've had friends who they come to me and they say, "Well, I'm thinking about starting a business." And what's the business you're going to do? Well, X.
Mm-hmm.
And then you say, "Well, that you've been doing that for 20 years. You know it inside and out. Go for it."
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've been an employee. So what? They rely on you, not the other way around. So clearly you're the expert, not them. And it always works as long as they
That's
make that
great.
mindset shift.
Yeah, it's on you. All right, cool. And then we've got what's the biggest challenge you faced while trying to scale that you've overcome?
Uh, Probably in the early days of when we first started working on some of our businesses, just not understanding that a product has to be it doesn't have to be perfect when you're putting it out. You just have to have that, I know it's a tired phrase, but it's
All
the
right.
truth. Minimum viable product. You get something out there and then you get the feedback that you need and then you move on. We didn't do a very good job of that at first. And so like one notable example is we wanted to create a community for entrepreneurs. And we originally called it the Small Business Boot Camp because in our
Hmm.
mind, entrepreneur, small business owner, kind of same thing, right? But what we ran into was the mentality of the people. Oh, I run restaurants. I'm a small business owner. I'm not an entrepreneur. And then the entrepreneur is going, well, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm not a small business owner. And so the name alone,
Hmm.
because we didn't do our research,
Yeah.
it kept people away. We ended up changing the name to the entrepreneur's water cooler and it went crazy.
Hmm.
So it was
Interesting.
literally as simple as just the right name.
Crazy how that works. Because I'm like, they both are small business. They're both entrepreneurs. Like, how do you guys not connect those dots? How do you run successful businesses and not connect those dots?
Yeah, it's kind of shocking, but that was like our biggest learning
Wow.
was to make sure that we don't make little mistakes like that. Because, you put something out and then you're expecting some traction and there's nothing but crickets. And then you start exploring and people say, "Oh, that's not for me. I'm not a small business owner. I'm an entrepreneur." Oh my gosh. I was like you, like, how do you not connect the dots?
Um, can you share a time when you tried a strategy that completely failed, and what did you take from it?
Yeah, that's an easy one. We moved to Las Vegas a few years ago, and we
Mm,
decided that we were going to get into the YouTube business. Um, we realized that by coming to a new place like this, we were going to be doing a lot of interesting things that we wouldn't normally do. Plus, it was kind of a change in life for us because I had two younger children from my first marriage who would live with us half the time. And so we were constantly trucking them around places and
mm,
it kept us busy. So moving here, we had a lot of free time. So we said, "Hey, let's start this YouTube channel." And, we get started and we start putting out videos and nothing. It's not working. And then I start following some people on YouTube and follow advice, not working. Till I find one particular company who they had I don't know what you'd call it. I guess it's a conference. It was a 4-day like video conference, and they talked about how you do YouTube and how you
mm,
have to have a process. And kind of like talking about the people who didn't understand that small business boot camp is for entrepreneurs. I wanted to smack myself in the head
mm,
because I'm a process guy. And what did I learn? It was all because we had no process in place for developing these videos. We'd come up with an idea, we'd go shoot the video, and we'd cut it up, edit it, put it out. There was no like end result in mind. And so what this place taught us was think of what your end result is. What do you want to accomplish from starting this YouTube channel? Do you want to make money? How much money do you want to make? How are you going to make that money? And then put a process in place that points you towards that. If you just want to do it for fun, great, but there has to be a process. Otherwise, you're wasting your time
yeah.
putting out videos. You know what I mean? Honestly, I guess if you're doing it for fun, who cares?
Yeah.
But when you're trying to even just get noticed, it taught me a lot because what I learned was even when you know that you need processes in place, if you don't take the time to sit down and like check off all the boxes, you'll find that you forget about the processes. You think
Mm,
you're in executing a process, but in reality, you're not. And they showed us a lot of gaps that we have. And like this company has a system for ranking videos and putting them out, and it just works when you
mm,
do what they say. It works, but it's on it's obviously it's on a scale. I mean, if you're in the right niche, it's 100,000 views. If you're not, it's 5,000 views, but 5,000 views for that niche might be huge. You never
could be,
know.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's just a learning that always take a step back from your business and look at it from the outside like a coach would do and be brutally honest about the shortcomings of what you see because they're going to be there, but because it's your business, you tend to ignore it.
Right.
And that's you ignore it at your own peril.
Yeah. Good points. What's one thing you wish you had done differently early in your career?
Through my career, I would probably say go out on my own a lot sooner. I helped a lot of businesses
Mm,
grow and founders do exits, and I got $0 out of that.
yeah.
I should have taken my ideas and moved out on my own a lot sooner. I mean, it's been what year are we in? It's been 17 years that I've been
Uh,
out on my own, and it probably should be more like 30 years.
wow.
And
Yeah.
I just wish that I had done that sooner, because I mean, there's all the cliched stuff like the freedom of working when you want to work because you're your
Uh-huh.
own boss. But the reality is, what it comes down to is taking your ideas, putting them out there in the marketplace, and watching how it helps people. It's so much different than doing it through a corporation
Hmm.
who, they're making all of the money and you're just collecting a paycheck every day. I much prefer the end results of this way than being an employee.
Yeah. I'm with you. And like you're saying, it's a different mindset. Employee versus employer. And I tell a lot of business owners because they'll get upset with their employees, and I go, they're not employers. They don't own the business. They don't have the skin in the game. They're never gonna have the skin in the game like you do. Like you got to motivate them, but they're never gonna be where you're at because they'll
Right.
get frustrated with certain people, and you're just like, you can't expect that from them. Common misconception about scaling businesses that you've learned.
It's kind of both ends of the same coin,
Uh,
really. Some people will tell you how easy it is, and some people tell you how impossible it is, and neither one of them are correct. It isn't really the easiest thing to do. And you mentioned it earlier that you get the people who, oh, they got lucky and got this huge, they did this and then they got this huge exit. That doesn't happen that often.
yeah.
But then there are people who are lucky and it happens
Mm.
again and again and again. And they're just lucky that, for whatever reason, they found a formula that works for them. But the reality is, again, it's a mindset shift. There's a certain way of thinking at 5 figures and 6 figures versus 7 figures and 8 figures. And you have to either be prepared as the business owner to run that way or hire somebody who can. It's
Makes
really
sense. Yeah.
and
And a
that's
lot of
and your team helps you scale. That's what really
yeah.
does it.
Yeah, and a lot of people they want to hold on to things a little too long and don't realize that even though they're giving up some money, it's freeing up time for them to be more successful.
Well, and putting expertise in seats that you might not be an expert at. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm not, I'm not a marketing person. I can get by and I can understand it and I can make, critical um, comments about what I see, but I'm not a marketing person. And so
Hmm.
if I want marketing strategy, I have to find a marketing person. And if it's what I need to do to scale my business, then I probably need to hire that person
Yeah.
to work on my business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. We come across these guys who've been doing stuff to get to a small level, and they're like, "Well, this is what's working. I'm not spending a lot of money." And then it's like, "Well, you got to invest. You got to spend money to generate the revenue, so that way the machine learning gets enough data so it can be successful." And they don't want to do it. They want to do small tests. Let's do like, they may be generating a couple million a year. Let's do a test. Let's do like, can we do like 300 a month? And you're like, "What are you doing? Well, you're wasting your time. Like, do you want results or
Yeah.
not?" Like,
Yeah, you're wasting time and money at that
and
point.
money. Yeah. But no, it's is true. And then what marketing or growth strategies did you try that didn't work at all that you do differently now?
Social media.
Yeah.
I actually kind of feel like social media is a joke when it comes to growing a brand. I think it creates brand awareness,
Yep.
but not in the way that you would think. The way it creates brand awareness is just that you're in their face all the time,
It's
so
social
they can't.
proof.
Yeah, so they can't help
Yeah.
but forget, remember who you are.
Yeah.
But beyond that, most people don't end up hiring a service or buying a product just because they saw you on social media. They want to talk to somebody else who used your product or service. They want to see that proof that it works and that you do a good job. And everyone thinks that social media is great, but it kind of goes back to your example of the $300 a month. They're trying to get away with spending as little as possible. And one of the things I recently read, and I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it sounds accurate to me, is that one of the biggest mistakes people make when trying to, like, say, advertise their business is choosing too small of a budget. It
Oh
doesn't
yeah,
give it
for
doesn't
sure.
give the algorithms
Yeah.
enough time and space to push you out to where it needs to go. And then they say the second mistake people make is trying too hard on their own to pare down their audience. And I know why they do that. They're trying to spend less money. But so we're back to that money thing. But
Yeah.
they say get your target audience like basically laid out, and then let the advertising platform find your people, and it will do it.
Oh
if you
yeah.
gave it the right information. So I don't know. I think for me it was social media. We spent an awful lot of time on social media, and honestly, we pulled back to doing like on our podcast network. We do 5 posts a week,
Hmm.
and we have applications of the yin yang for people who want to come and be a part of the podcast network. That wasn't happening when we were releasing 2 and 3 times a day.
Oh yeah.
And I find that really interesting. So the reality is we started advertising our network, we started cross promoting through shows. That worked. But the social media aspect of it, it just didn't work. So now we have our presence. It's small, as far as like how much content we put out,
Hmm.
it's small, but it's mighty. And that's really what you want. Who cares if you put out 100 posts a week? It doesn't make any difference if it's not converting into
Yeah.
sales.
Yeah, and I have businesses where they'll be spending money for someone to do their social and they'll spend thousands of dollars. And I'm like, you got like 100 followers. What's the point? Why don't we take that money, shift it to an ad budget, build your followers, run your ads? Because there's a million ways to do it, right? Depending on the business. Like for coaching, you could structure it so your ads that are bringing in people through webinars or something or video
Yeah.
testimonials and mashups and stuff. But for e-commerce, I'm telling you, you just have to have a page with a little bit of social proof. We can see it run. We'll see social ads like Meta just like start running. And like what you were saying about audience is that the audience, a lot of times the way it is now, you don't really need to pare down. You just go maybe within an age range, maybe a household income, where they live, but outside that, it's going to figure it out because it's going to go and it's multivariate testing to find audience pools because it used to be so manual where you try and like, oh, this age range and they like this magazine and
Yeah.
they live by or they like boats, right? Now, because there's so many variables that we can't track manually, this thing does it all. And it's like we found it's way more efficient that way too because we tested out. We stopped testing because it's just one hands down now, right? Like, but
Well, yeah, I actually 100% agree. And we did the same kind of test
mhm.
where that community we were talking about, we finally just kind of cut out, we gave it the basics about who we were looking for and we let it go. And what
Yeah.
someone explained to us was that, because again, I'm not an expert in this, but what someone explained to us was that, the ad starts to go out and the algorithm's watching who's clicking on it and who's not, who's
Hmm.
engaging with it and who's not. And
Yep.
then it starts to push it more and more to those people. And so you'll watch your graph of like traffic go from really low to all of a sudden peak up, and it's because the algorithm's finding the people who are
Yeah.
interested in your stuff. I think the last ad we put out had a 57% click-through rate,
Wow.
and it wasn't because we picked the perfect avatar. It's because the algorithm figured out who was going to like it.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the beginning, I think we had like a 5% click-through rate, but it ended up being 57% over a 4-week period, which
Wow.
I thought was huge.
That is huge. Also, you're paying, people don't realize they're paying more for those people clicking now because there's greater value and you're getting in front of them more, so there's a higher frequency. But what they're not understanding from the old school metrics, it was like, how many page views can I get, right? And then you'd work backwards to click the rate because it was just a numbers game. Now it's like, all right, how can we get the least amount of people to your site that you're going to convert? It's is some
Yeah,
might be
one
awareness. It
it's counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but when you really take the time to think about it, it makes sense. Because if I
Hmm.
can get 100 people to my site and make, say, 50 sales, let's just use an easy number.
Yep.
That's a lot better than getting 1,000 people to my site and making, 100 sales.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you can scale that and the price will be the same. But now you
Right.
have more engaged people, you have a better marketing funnel, you have higher probabilities picking up contact information. So it's come a long way. And then how currently are you building your sales pipeline and generating leads?
We for the coaching business, I actually have a virtual assistant who reaches out to people on LinkedIn,
Okay.
and she'll she'll watch their content, or I'll be watching their content and engaging with their content, and I'll say, "Hey, this person has the issues that I help them solve."
Hmm.
Start sending them, and we have a DM campaign that we use, and a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I'm not interested because, it's an automated DM," but it isn't. It's literally personalized to their exact situation. And so I'll say to them, "How did the robot know that you posted about this?"
Hmm.
You see like the change of tone right away. But yeah, that's how we do it. We reach out. we book probably about 10 to 15 calls a week, and the old-fashioned way. I'm actually converting right now because it's harder to scale the one-to-one coaching without hiring other coaches, and I'm not really ready to do that yet.
Hmm.
So I'm actually switching to a model where I'm going to do it like a mastermind type situation where I meet them on Zoom once a month, a group of people, and then offer them, so that's a done do it yourself way. And then I'll offer them the DFY help
Hmm.
as a side sell, and probably end up making more money that way per client. The key though is not doing it like, not calling it group coaching, because it's not what it's going to be. Yet some people will say that when they hear, oh, I'm going to meet with a group of people, I'm group coaching. Well, no, you're not, because I'm going to limit that space to a certain number of people. And when we have enough, we'll do a second one and a third one and a
Hmm.
fourth one.
Yeah, I know I've got a couple clients who do it in that way where they'll have a community, right? And then they'll provide the content information. And then if you want to do stuff off on the side individual, then that's where the coaching starts. But it's kind of a training, kind of like the group you went to for 4 days, that something that just continues. And it's a subscription-based model as well, too, which I love subscription-based models. You keep money coming.
Right.
Keep putting it in my pocket every month. Like you might be engaged, you might not. But no, that's cool. That'll be good. So LinkedIn outreach, it's very strong. We use that too. Um, no, that's cool.
Yeah, I mean,
And
also, I mean, I have a tech interview show that I do,
mhm,
and I will many times, depending on what the guest says, I can promote my coaching services through that. And it's great because it gives me social proof. They can hear what I believe in, what I teach, and they hear it me interacting with someone else. They get that person's feedback. It has created a few interesting case studies for me.
nice. Awesome. What advice do you have for small businesses who are looking to scale?
It's gonna sound strange, but first, be your authentic self. If you're a sarcastic person, find a way to be sarcastic. People love to work with people who are real.
Hmm.
And, what they don't want to see is the sarcasm online, and then they get on a Zoom call
And
and
you,
you're suddenly this buttoned up, business guy. They don't like that at all. Be real, be authentic. But then it's just a matter of, showing up, reinvest in your business. Don't plan on if you're making $10,000 a month, don't count on that as your salary.
hmm
You have to take a salary and reinvest the money as much as you can into the business, and keep at it. Be consistent with that and play the long game. Scaling is not something that happens overnight for most people. And remember something. I mean, I literally just interviewed a guy yesterday who was on Shark Tank, got $1 million offer from Mark Cuban on Shark Tank. And he said, people say to him all the time, oh, you're so successful. How, I can't believe it. And he's like, yeah, but what they don't see is all the failures that came before I succeeded. And so be prepared to fail along the way, and
Yeah.
just pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, and keep going. If you keep moving forward, eventually, as long as you're not doing things to undermine your business, you should slowly see growth. And it's like I like to tell people, it's like an accelerator. The further you go down the scaling path, the faster it starts to go, because you hit levels that they just drive the next level and the next level and next level. It's one of the things that surprised me about scaling some of our businesses was it'd be really difficult, and then all of a sudden it would get really easy. And then you'd question, like, well, what the heck happened? Did I do something wrong in the beginning?
Saw
But
the
it's
groundwork you laid
yeah,
taken off, you know? Yeah.
exactly. That's it. That's it. Just have a plan, work that plan. And if you need to make little tweaks to the plan along the way, make sure that there's a reason for it. Don't just do it just because.
Awesome. All right, last question. Are you using AI and what platforms are you using?
Yes, I use AI as kind of my sounding board, and I bounce between two depending on what I need. My main one is ChatGPT.
Mm,
I really like having discussions about strategic planning with it, And then later when I've created the strategic plan, give it to it and say, okay, based on everything we discussed, where are the holes? And that's what I use it for. I don't like to let it write or anything like that. It writes really weird stuff. Um, it's I have found it's actually really good at one thing I
Mm.
like its writing is I'll write an email, maybe I'll be a little emotional about it, and I'll say, okay, here's the situation, here's the email I wrote, make it less emotional. And it
Yeah.
will, you know.
Wow.
And then the other one that I use is Gemini.
Hmm.
And that I use a lot for my YouTube work because, of course, it's connected to YouTube
Yeah.
and it can get a lot of data that ChatGPT cannot get about videos. And, I'm doing competitor research or whatever, I'll use Gemini for that. But for the most part, ChatGPT is my chief marketing officer right now.
Got it. Cool. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.